This is a continuation of my earlier video, Proud to be a Neanderthal. Some of the reactions seem to indicate that non-Africans are mentally superior to Africans due to the fact that Neanderthals had larger brains and that Neanderthals passed their DNA only to non-Africans. While non-Africans are more educated than people living in Africa, it's not necessarily due to genetics. Culture has a lot to do with education, intelligence, and brain development over generations. Our dark-skinned ancestors encountered a people that at one time evolved larger brains than they had, but the culture had a greater influence on brain size than genetics. There is no evidence that I know of that there is a genetic test for intelligence, except that people with Neanderthal DNA tend to be more intelligent or more educated. This doesn't imply that people in Africa are genetically less intelligent. It implies that these people have fewer ancestors that were exposed to cultures which led to development of higher intelligence. If your ignorant tribal person, with or without Neanderthal DNA, were exposed to a university culture for several generations, their descendants would score as high on intelligence tests as your European and Asians. For example, the native tribal groups of North America, South America, and Australia with Neanderthal DNA are not developing much faster than their descendants of the 18th century African tribe members, with the exception of Inca and Maya influenced descendants living in Mexico. If in the human race, it is and has always been culture and not genetics that has driven the evolution of intelligence and increased brain size. Beyond genetic improvements that allowed for standing upright, eye development, and vocalizing, it is culture that drives human evolution, and it was probably a primitive form of culture that led to the evolution away from chimpanzees and the fusion of the two chromosomes that led to the genetic difference. Outside of an additional area of the brain that the Neanderthals did not produce any evolutionary advance absent in African people. The Neanderthals at some point in their history developed faster than people living in Africa. It is the Neanderthal influenced culture that lives on today in Europe and Africa. It is possible to trace culture back through human evolution. Every detail of every modern culture can be traced back through time, all the way back to when pre-humans were developing language and primitive tool making. This would be as difficult as mapping the Homo sapien genome was, but it can be done with the help of computer programs. Brain size is related to how many neuron connections a person or animal has. The Neanderthal brain had an additional section in the area associated with visual processing. Neanderthals might have been mystics. It is my belief that the major religions, including secret society type beliefs, that led to the development of science are rooted among the Neanderthals. And this was after the split from modern Africans. I don't think this happened during the extreme cold ice age periods, but during the warmer periods within the past 150,000 years. In tracing culture, every detail is considered and traced. This would include such varied details as religion, drug use, sexual practices, language structure, government, writing, various games, art, and many more details. Additionally, each of these details can be broken down into smaller and smaller details. One could start by tracing the roots of, say, rock music back to the 18th century and then tracing each found source. Then each result could be put into a linked, connected database.